This week on State of Texas, the race for Attorney General. Ken Paxton has Donald Trump's backing, but he also faces an indictment and a federal investigation.
If you're facing your own legal difficulties, how can you address the criminal issues that are facing our state?
We go in depth with the high-profile Republicans challenging Paxton, why they say Texas needs to make a change. Democrats also say it's time for someone new.
I have this experience of being able to fight for folks from the ground all the way up.
From racial justice to women's rights and looser marijuana laws, the ideas candidates are pushing to win your vote. And what do voters think? Our new poll shows us who has the edge and who could force a runoff in the race for Attorney General.
Produced from the Capitol in Austin and airing statewide, this is the award-winning State of Texas.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Josh Hinkle. This week, we're devoting our entire program to the race for Texas Attorney General. Ken Paxton narrowly won re-election in 2018. This year's race could be just as close due to continuing legal issues for Paxton. He's under FBI investigation after former top staffers accused him of abusing his office to help a campaign donor. It's a big reason both Democrats and Republicans running against him believe they have a chance to win. We partnered with Emerson College Polling and The Hill to poll Texas voters. The results show Paxton leading challengers George P. Bush, Eva Guzman, and Louis Gohmert, but he's still below the 50% threshold needed to avoid a runoff. Monica Madden looks at how Paxton is banking on battles with the Biden administration and a big-time endorsement to push him to victory.
Texas is suing.
Ken Paxton rarely talks about ongoing investigations into his actions. At a news conference, he pushed aside a question about his Republican challengers, calling attention to his legal troubles.
And I'm not going to talk about my campaign. I'm not going to talk about campaign issues.
In 2015, Paxton was indicted on felony securities fraud charges. Last year, 7 of his top aides reported him to the FBI, accusing him of bribery and abuse of office. Despite this, he is still leading the polls.
Ken Paxton is America's most conservative attorney general,
Pitching himself as someone who will keep pursuing an aggressive agenda that the GOP base wants to see.
Because it's not just for Texas, it's really the whole nation that we're defending.
He's sued the Biden administration 20 times with mixed results.
Fighting the Biden administration, trying to get them to enforce federal law.
9 of those lawsuits are related to another red meat issue for the reddest part of the base, the border.
We've watched our immigration problem become a massive problem.
And on top of it all is one of the strongest cards in his deck.
Ken Paxton, my complete and total endorsement.
All 3 of Paxton's campaign TV ads highlight the fact that he is the one endorsed by Trump, hoping the former president's support will earn him more votes. Monica Madden for State of Texas.
Paxton did not respond to our request for a one-on-one interview. We wanted to take a closer look at how the Trump endorsement could influence the primary election. Our poll asked Republican primary voters, would a Donald Trump endorsement make you more or less likely to vote for that candidate? Nearly half said they'd be more likely to support someone endorsed by Trump. Just 16% said his endorsement would make them less likely to vote for a candidate. Land Commissioner George P. Bush actively tried to get Trump's backing when he launched his campaign for Attorney General. While he didn't get the endorsement, Bush does have a good shot to take this race to a runoff. He spoke one-on-one with Maggie Glenn about how he would change the AG's office if elected.
So starting off, if elected, what would be your top priorities as Attorney General, and what would an office under George P. Bush as Attorney General look like?
Well, thank you again for the opportunity to visit with your viewers on this important race to define the future of our great state. First and foremost, we need to secure our border. That means working with county DAs, sheriffs in our border areas. Instead of sending information packets, we need to send lawyers and paralegals to help our farmers and ranchers either build Texas Wall and or prosecute under Governor Abbott's executive order, also known as Operation Lone Star, to make sure that we're apprehending, triaging the risk, understanding who's coming in.
What would you do different than Ken Paxton at the border?
Well, you know, he's just suing the federal government, which is important, and we can debate basically his win-loss record, which I don't believe is strong enough as it should be. But what he's not doing is helping local and county officials, leveraging the power of the state of Texas to backstop our local law enforcement. I'm the only candidate in this race that's promoting the idea of a mobile prosecution unit to deploy, similar to a military deployment, of deploying whatever we have here in Austin to help our border communities. I'm also the only proponent and first in the courthouse in the idea of suing the federal government under the National Impoundment Control Act to compel the federal government to spend money on the so-called Trump wall because 300 miles was yet to be constructed. And as land commissioner, I'm actually building a wall. But that's what I would be doing differently, is actually leveraging the resources, rolling up our sleeves, finding savings, and addressing this crisis instead of doing press conferences on the border.
You've been highly critical of incumbent Ken Paxton's legal woes. How would you restore faith to the office if elected?
Well, I think it's partly being a Christian, showing supplication, humility to the legislature, to the people of Texas, to other county DAs, and restoring that trust. I pride myself on my relationships not only in the legislature, but also with county judges and DAs and county sheriffs. So I'm going to go on a roadshow similar to this campaign throughout the state of Texas, reconnect the office, but restore authorities. During Ken Paxton's time, we've seen that voting fraud, which is a top issue for conservatives in Texas, he has lost that remaining area of authority to prosecute those claims. We need to go back into the legislature, amend the Constitution, restore authorities on human trafficking, on capital crimes, on the big issues that's facing Texans in a very violent situation where we see a spike, including here in Austin, of an all-time high rate of homicides. And that's where the AG needs to step in. But if you're facing your own legal difficulties, how can you address the criminal issues that are facing our state?
Bush and the other AG challengers have spotlighted the indictment and the separate federal investigation facing Paxton, but many primary voters don't seem to care. Our poll asked Republican primary voters whether Paxton's legal issues would affect their likelihood of voting for him. 41% said it has no impact, 23% said it actually makes them more likely to vote for Paxton. A quarter of Republican voters said the accusations make them less likely to vote for him. Those are the voters who could be moved by the message Eva Guzman is campaigning on. The former Texas Supreme Court Justice spoke with Maggie Glenn, and she said she has the background to restore integrity to the office of the Attorney General.
If you're officially elected, what would your top priorities as Attorney General be? What would an office under Eva Guzman look like?
Thank you so much for having me on today. On day one, I restore integrity just by walking into the office. On day two, I began to rebuild the staff. The 7 that went to the FBI, they need to be replaced by equally competent, equally brilliant lawyers. And on day 3, I'm ready to sue Joe Biden to secure our border, our elections, and protect our individual freedoms.
How would you do things differently besides just, saying you're suing the Biden administration? How would you make sure that, Texas wins?
Texas is hiring a lawyer. I'm asking Texans to hire a lawyer with 22 years of experience in the judiciary, 12 of them on the Supreme Court of Texas, the highest court in the state. If you're going to win in the courtroom, you actually have to know something about the complex constitutional law questions that an AG protects. So on day one, my lawsuits will be winning lawsuits. I know how judges think, and I know how courts process complex constitutional questions. That's what the job is about. It's not about photo ops. It's about upholding the rule of law. And you can't uphold it if you've never been in the courtroom like George P. Bush. And you can't uphold it if you think you're above the law like Ken Paxton.
What makes your goals for securing our border different, and why would they work better than the other candidates?
So if you look on my website, evaguzman.com, you'll see a plan for securing our border. That includes bringing in the types of lawsuits that force the Biden administration to do their job, which is to bring enough magistrates down to the border to make sure that these claims are processed. It's suing the Biden administration for the effect that their policies are having on everyday Texans. No one's more motivated than me. Sadly and tragically, my dad was killed many years ago by an illegal immigrant. I will sue Joe Biden. I will protect our border so that no other family will have to experience what we did.
You, along with your other challengers, have been highly critical of Ken Paxton and the indictment he's under, but also the whistleblower case that broke last year. How would you restore integrity to the office if elected?
I have, and I'm known for my character. I'm known for the integrity that I approach my work with. I'm known for my respect for the rule of law. Ken Paxton thinks he's above the rule of law. He has no respect for our courts. He lied to the FBI. He lied to his wife. He lied to his staff. And he needs to stop lying to the people of Texas. And it's time Texans hire an attorney general who will fight for them. I will. but I'll do it with the integrity that the job demands and that Texans deserve.
One of the most conservative members of Congress gives up his re-election bid and joins the race for AG. Why he says a win for Ken Paxton could be a win for Democrats. And Democrats have their own message for voters: how new ideas from a diverse field of candidates could attract Texans who want change.